Welcome to the Miami Heat Zone podcast. I'm your host, Martel Llewellyn. We're pushing on 5,000 subscribers. Guys, hit that subscribe button and thank you for all the support. So, you guys know that I'm doing a series where I'm bringing on Miami Heat fans to talk Miami Heat hoops and what they think about the current roster and where the team is headed. Today, we have Grant Clark. Grant, just tell the people like a few things about you real quick before we begin.
My name is Grant Clark. I'm a student right now in college. I'm going to UF for sports journalism. Huge Miami Heat sports fan, but overall a big Miami Heat fan. Diehard, been a diehard fan for years now. So just a pleasure to be on. Thank you for having me.
Guys, so make sure that you guys head over to his Instagram, and I'm sure once he graduates, he's probably going to be, bro. He'll be the next big guy. Probably covering like the Miami Heat or the Marlins or the Dolphins. Who knows? So don't forget
Appreciate it.
us when you get big, man. So the Miami Heat, right now they're kind of running it back. It is what it is. I know a lot of Miami Heat fans are really not happy about it. But what do
Yeah,
you think right now with a hopefully motivated Jimmy Butler? Tyler Herro, he's healthy. Terry Rozier, he's healthy. Where do you see the Miami Heat stacking up in the Eastern Conference with the Boston Celtics? They're not going
very
anywhere.
good.
The New York Knicks, they made some great pickups with Mikal Bridges. They brought back OG. The Milwaukee Bucks, of course, they're going to try to make some noise. They did trade for Damian Lillard. So where do you see the Miami Heat stacking up in this Eastern Conference?
So I think you said it when you said Tyler Hero and Terry Rozier being healthy. The big word I think that goes with this Heat squad is health. I think they go as far as they can go by through health. I think a motivated Jimmy Butler is going to be great, but is he going to be able to stay healthy? That's the more important question to me. I'm actually not as mad as most Heat fans are about running it back. I do think there's a lot of raw talent on this team. I think that you add Terry Rozier, you give him a full off season to train and get right with the schemes. Work with Bam a little on the pick and roll game because I think pick and roll is a big thing that we need to unlock with Bam and use more. Um, I think that there's a lot of things that could go in the right direction. I love the addition of KEL'EL WARE. I think that's having a shot blocker, a 7-footer that you could hopefully, maybe eventually down the line, pair next to Bam. I don't think he'll get there right away, but that would be cool to see develop as the season goes on. I think that there's a lot of positives. Obviously, you don't have the star power that the Celtics have or the Sixers just acquired by getting Paul George or, the Knicks that just added all those acquisitions. Um, I think that if Jimmy Butler is motivated and the team can stay healthy, I think they can be a top five, top four team in the East. I do think they'll be able to avoid the play-in, but if they keep having that injury bug happen, I do think that they're going to end right back into the play-in and maybe even worse. So we'll see what happens.
So what's your ideal starting lineup? I know a lot of people they're mentioning maybe even Haywood Heisman starting at the two. There's a lot of people that they still want Tyler Hero to come off the bench, or maybe even Terry to come off the bench. Some people want KEL'EL Ware to start. So what is your ideal, starting five where we have Nico, Jaime, Tyler. There's so many different pieces that we can plug and play with. But of course, you also kind of have to manage the egos and people's personalities. So what is your ideal starting lineup for the Miami Heat?
So what I think the starting lineup will be is Tyler, Terry. I think Terry will be point guard. Tyler will be shooting guard. I think Jimmy will be at the small forward. I think Jovic will be at power forward, and I think Bam will be at center. But what I would like to personally see is I don't, as much as I would like to see Tyler Hero come off the bench, I think that that's the role that suits him best. I think that his ego at this point, with the money he's making, with where he's at in his career, I think that they're just not going to resort to that. So I think the better player out of the two of him and Rozier to come off the bench would be Rozier. So I think what I would be interested in seeing as a potential starting lineup would be at starting point guard you have Tyler, and then at the two you put in Haywood Highsmith, who's a lockdown defender, has proven that he's improved his 3-point shooting, can be that kind of 3-and-D Caldwell Pope sort of player, can finally play at a position that I feel like his height can guard up, and that could benefit a lot. And then I think that's where you slide Jimmy back into the three. And then I think you keep Jovic as at the power forward spot. I loved what I saw from him last year, and I think that he can become a very good point four. And then I think you keep Bam at that center spot. And maybe off the bench, that's when you start tweaking with the lineups to see if you can get Bam some power forward minutes and see where that goes. But that would be a starting lineup I would like to see. I think it's a lot of good balance. I know that that will probably never happen, but it'd be interesting to see.
So where do you stand with this in terms of there's a lot of people that say that, Jimmy Butler never got enough help, Pat Riley has done a terrible job. But when you really sit back and think about it, trades like Victor Oladipo. I think that Victor Oladipo would have been solid. He just was hurt. Same thing with Tyler or Kyle Lowry, for example. Kyle Lowry at the time, he was one of the best free agents on the market, but it just really didn't work out. So do you think the Miami Heat got Jimmy Butler the enough help over these past few years to win a championship?
So I think that the best year that he had the most help was when they were the one seed. I think it was the 2022-2023 season. We had gotten Kyle Lowry and PJ Tucker onto the roster, and then you make the trade for Victor Oladipo. Like you said, I think Victor Oladipo is a great trade. Very low price. You get an all-star caliber player who you're taking a little bit of a risk on, but will always have that lockdown defense. And I think that he was phenomenal when he was healthy. I do think he had his bumps, but I think Pat Riley was in the right spot there. And I love that team, and I think that was the best chance they had to do something. I think that was the most help that Pat Riley gave the Heat. But as the years have gone on, like we go into this season, it's like we're running it back for like who knows how many years at this point. It feels like it's just keeps going for 10 years at this point. But look, the Damian Lillard thing, it does seem like that was more of on the Trailblazers end than our end. It does seem like Pat Riley's mind was there. And I do think at the end of the day, if someone like maybe Kevin Durant frees up at the trade deadline, like a name like that, I do think Pat Riley's always willing to look into it and make a trade. Do I think he should be a little bit more aggressive? I do. I do think that he should look into things more. I would have been, looking into Kyle Kuzma. It seems like that's a name that could really help us as a for a cheaper price. But I'm going to be interested this year. I think this year is going to show a lot about what the future is for the Heat and how much help we're going to actually get, or if we're going to start taking a step back and maybe developing our younger guys.
So talking about the future, which is a very good point, I think that Bam Adebayo, he is our cornerstone piece going forward. He's an
Yes.
Olympian, 20 and 10, best defender in the NBA. Let's just say that Jimmy Butler kind of has a similar season to what he had last year. Are you willing to trade Jimmy Butler while you still can? Because he already said it, he's not going to take the extension this year. That means he wants to go into the following offseason, looking at all of his options, and that's fine. However, I don't want to lose Jimmy Butler for nothing. And at the
Yes.
same time, everyone's not comfortable with giving him that contract extension. So let's say he has a iffy season. Are you willing to trade Jimmy Butler to maybe get, maybe one or two young pieces to help with Jimmy, Tyler, Jovic, Jaime, KEL'EL Ware? Like, where's your standpoint on Jimmy Butler? I know he's been great for us. I think he's been able to do more with less when you look across the NBA with all these other stacked up teams. But where do you stand on possibly trading Jimmy Butler?
So I'm a huge Jimmy Butler fan. I've loved what he's done the last few years for this team. I think that he really brought it out the mud. It was going through some struggling years, and he really helped turn it around. I think as far as trading Jimmy goes, I think you at least have to try out this first half of the season with this roster and see, if it could be successful. Like I said earlier, Terry Rozier getting a full offseason, everyone getting back to health. There could be a chance that we look like a top team in the East. There could be, but I think if everything's falling apart, I think, as much as it pains me to say it because I'm a huge Jimmy Butler fan, I think if a young star with a bright future, like say like the De'Aaron Foxes in the world, the Anthony Edwards in the world, those types of players, I think you have to pull the trigger. I think Bam deserves to have a young star next to him, especially one that like fits his timeline better. I think right now we're trying to balance two different timelines between win now and youth at the same time. And I think this season ultimately is where we need to decide which route we want to go. And if they want to go the younger route, I do see a world where we should look into, take calls on Jimmy Butler trade, see if there's a young star that we can pair up next to Bam and start preparing for that part of our franchise, that part of our build.
Same thing with Tyler Herro because there's a lot of people calling for him to be traded. Where do you stand with him in terms of he's 25 years old? I think there's a lot of talent there. He's just been really unhealthy. All these freak injuries, breaking hands, the ankle or the groin or whatever it might be. Where do you stand on Tyler Herro? I think he's a good young player. I just think he kind of shoots himself in the foot when he says, well, I'm in the same conversation as Luka, Trey, and
Right.
Ja. You know what I mean? And as you can see, Duncan is clearly the better fit. And that's one of the things I just don't understand. I mean, Jimmy and Bam, they're not even the best 3-point shooters. Technically, Tyler's supposed to be that final piece between those three. in terms of he brings the 3-point shooting. He brings that kind of scoring, mentality. So where does Tyler Hero fit on this roster? Do you think he should be traded? Should we keep him? What do you think about that one?
So I'm not as against Tyler Hero as a lot of the fans are. I think that he's a bright play, like he has a bright future ahead of him. I don't think he's reached his full potential yet. I really don't. I think he's still improving. I think he's shown that he needs to work on his durability a little bit more. He's had a lot of injuries. I mean, he played less games than Jimmy Butler last year, who's 35 years old and he's 25. I think that's a major issue they need to get to. I do think that as far as keeping Tyler Hero on this team, I think the best way to utilize him and get the most success out of him is to start seeing him become more of a catch and shoot 3-point player and a secondary ball handler instead of a primary handler. Because I believe last season on catch and shoot spot up threes, he was shooting around 43%. I believe that's the number he was shooting, which that's a very good percentage, and that's something that any team could use. I think if you really do want to play him next to Terry, you have to like look into making him more of a catch and shoot. Will he do that? Will he be willing to accept that role? I'm not sure because we wanted him to do the 6-man role and it didn't look like he was willing to accept that role. So I do think that keeping him right now is a good idea. But like I said, if halfway through the season things are looking bad, he's kind of at the same as where he was last season. I do think it's time to make shake things up, maybe get a different piece next to Bam.
So you mentioned that, with Terry Rozier, which I think is a huge X factor. I know a lot of people, they're really focused on the running it back, but we're kind of not running it back, like in a sense, because Terry Rozier, I don't want to see timid Terry. I want to see scary Terry. If
Right,
Terry
right.
Rozier can give us 18 points a game with his scoring, besides Jimmy Butler and Bam, Terry can get to the rim, create rim pressure. How big is Terry Rozier? Because think about it. What if we had Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero, and Bam Adebayo going? We probably would have still lost, but I would have still liked to see Terry in that atmosphere. I would still like to see Terry playing winning basketball. So what do you think about Terry Rozier coming back healthy and the impact? Because people always tell me all the time, oh, well, we have 4 20-point per game scorers. We do, but we have to be able to see that on the court. We got to be able to see that in the box score and flourish in the Eric Spoelstra offense. So how big is Terry Rozier for this Miami Heat team?
Right. I think Terry is huge. You look at that last month of the season, he really started to look like he was turning things around. He was really starting to look like a threat. I mean, look at that game in Cleveland he had where he hit that 4-point play, just going down the stretch, taking the ball up the court every single time, making it over and over again. I mean, if you can get that Terry Rozier where you just give him the ball and everyone gets out of the way and let him dance, I think that could be a huge factor. I think he's a very clutch player. I think he's proven that throughout his career. Uh, the biggest complaint about him is, oh, he was doing that on the Charlotte Hornets. Well, he was also on Boston. Whether his role wasn't as big, he was on a good team there. And I think that if anything, this last month of the regular season before he had gotten re-injured, I think he was really starting to prove himself and starting to get more comfortable. And I don't think Jimmy wants the ball in his hands as much as Terry Rozier. I think if you give the ball to Terry Rozier and you work on a pick and roll game with him and Bam, a lot of things can open up for Bam and Terry. And I think that elevates your offense to a whole new level. I do think that Terry Rozier is great when he's shot creating. He's, dancing with people, ISO in. I think he's a great player in ISO situations. And I really think that he's one of our best I do think he's one of our best offensive players, and I could see him averaging 18. I could even see him averaging 20 points a game if it's on high efficiency. That's another thing. He does need to become more efficient. It does seem like at times he's just shot chucking, but if he can get that efficiency down and he can get that rhythm and that fluidity, I think he's going to be a really uh, big piece for us this year.
Now, Jaime Jaquez Jr. Listen, I don't think people are really talking about him enough. Look
Hmm.
at what he did last year. And, maybe midway through the season, he was saying he was a little bit tired, because just from the 82 game season grind and, him, coming out of college where you don't really play that many games. How big is Jaime Jaquez Jr. for this roster coming up? Because when you really sit back and think, his phenomenal season that he had last year, he's working on his body. And he did say the two best things that you can really have in the NBA. He said he wanted to be more of a knockdown shooter and
Yes.
a lockdown defender.
Yeah.
What more could you really want? So how big is this next season coming up for Jaime Jaquez Jr.? Jovic, to me, I think he still has a little bit more to prove. he's taken a little bit more time, but I just don't think the Miami Heat are necessarily playing Jovic the right way. Because remember, when he first came here, he didn't want to play the like the four or the center,
Mhm.
especially like in the G League. I think he's a guard that's trapped in like in a 6'11", 7-foot body,
Very well could
pushing
be,
the
yeah.
pace. You know what I mean? Because at 6'11", he's not really the best rebounder for his size. So
Right.
what's your opinion on Jaime and Jovic and the impact that they're going to have this upcoming season?
So Jaime is going to have almost the biggest role out of anyone on this team, I feel like, especially coming off the bench. He's probably going to be our sixth man. Look, we just lost KEL'EL WARE, big player for us the last couple seasons in that role, especially. And I think that you're going to see Jaime try to slide into that role. And like you said, he was making it very clear that his two biggest things he was working on this offseason was his defense and his 3-point shooting. And I've said it all along, his footwork is elite, one of the best players with footwork on our team. I think the IQ is there. I think he has a very good IQ. I just think that you're going to see a big jump from him this year. I mean, just look at the summer league. He played 2 games, but it looked like a man amongst boys in those games. I mean, he looked so far ahead of everyone else that was playing there, and I just really think that he's going to show that he is a great role player at this current stage. I mean, and he can even blossom into potentially an all-star in his future. And you look at Jovic, and I think Jovic is the one that is the higher ceiling. He's taken a little bit more time, but he proved last year he's had some flashes. And like you said, I would like to see him get some guard reps. I think he has really good vision. You see him get a rebound, he's the one that's sprinting down the floor. He's pushing the pace, and I think that's very telling of where he wants to be playing. And look, I think his ceiling is super high. I mean, he's so young. He just turned 21 last season, I believe. So it's like that potential is there, and he was knocking down shots in that playoff series against the Celtics. He was one of him and Hawkins looked very good in that series. So, um, look, I'm very excited for those two. I think Jaime Hawkins is going to be a more stable role this year, and he's going to be like maybe like a 16 point per game player on high efficiency, good lockdown defense, and I think Jovic is going to be the more of the let's see if we can get his ceiling higher and higher and higher and keep stacking it up and seeing where he can go from now.
Well, Grant, thank you again for coming on the show. We're definitely going to bring
Appreciate
you
it.
back. We have some more episodes coming up, and you definitely know some Miami Heat hoops and just ball overall. So
Thank
once
you.
again, where can the people find you?
You can find me at my Instagram at Grant Clark 23. That's pretty much where you can find me. That's pretty much my handle for everything: Twitter, Instagram. That's about it. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Guys, make sure that you guys go to his social medias, hit that like button, hit the subscribe wherever he's at. Make sure that you guys go show him support. I'm telling you, he's the next guy up. I'm sure he's gonna be, like with the Dolphins, the Miami Heat, someone because he definitely knows what he's talking about. So make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button. We are pushing the 5K, and thank you guys for all the support. Thank you again, Grant.
Thank you.